I would like to begin with a question that hopefully can help you to understand what I'm going to explain. What is pragmatism? Certainly, it's a word that we are used to hear, but I have to recognize that it hides a very interesting meaning. Pragmatism is a concept that appears every day in our lives, even without realizing its existence. Now, I would like to show you an example that can be familiar to you and that have something to do with the topic that I am going to present you today. It is an easy fact to observe that in most of the universities, people choose degrees that, in addition to providing new and extensive knowledge, also give them a utility, where its exercise might have a goal to achieve economic benefits and a high social status. Pragmatism has great influence on our present human beings after a long process of developing knowledge begin to find a practical sense to this knowledge. Thus, we can say that in a positive sense, thanks to pragmatism, we have realized that man transforms things through a process of human-environment relationship. As Dewey presents, we rebuild and transform elements that already exist in something that will be beneficial for us. And that's exactly what our current media system does. From the point of view of the media, he also recognized the importance to highlight the category of experience that can be understood as the dynamism of a live human body in its interaction with the environment. We should view media as not static artifacts, but as a process of their work in direct connection with the human as continuous development process of an action and change, as a medial experience. Medial experience is rooted into a social historical context and cannot be separated from its genesis in socio-political circumstances. The emergence of media themselves and their subsequent transformation are in experience. Media are open to change and transformation. They are the product of constantly changing setting of the experience of their usage. It is an interactive game fluctuating the context of interactions, medium, environment, and human. Medial experience stimulates moving forward, getting something new, encourages new approach to environing and unity of various elements of experience. The task of the pragmatic philosophy of media is in the study of concrete medial experiences and of concrete usage of media in order to understand better media effects, the positive and negative sides of media activity. The media influence is not just a linguistic component, it includes visual, audible, and tactile dimensions. Human experience is medialized. Media deliver us the word and pre-organize it. We all know that today's society is called information society. The role of television, radio, newspapers, magazine, and internet in our times is not only to be information sources about what is happening in the world, they are also tools that manipulate the public opinion. Being one of the most influential factors of modern culture, media are, however, and at the same time, product of dominant culture in society, especially of linguistic culture. This allows us to speak on the one hand about the language of journalism as a modality of styles and of functional language, scientific style, colloquial style, and about the peculiarities of journalistic language of a country compared to other countries. I would like to focus my work on the pragmatic sense of the Spanish journalistic language. Traditionally, we can distinguish the following types of media: journalism, advertising, commercial advertising, and public relations. Their basic objective has been always to achieve a certain mood or judgment and to polarize opinions in around something more or less circumstantial, public opinion. All journalistic material play always two functions: the informative function and the pragmatic function. The pragmatic goals may be different, to capture and hold the attention of the reader from a certain emotional attitude or an opinion about something, bring to the reader to your side, or to prompt him or her to take an action. There are also different methods of creating predisposition. Persuasion and inculcation act simultaneously in communicative process. This means, for example, the formation of the predisposition to perceive the news to its logical interpretation, or the formation of the predisposition to perceive the news uncritically under the influence of external factors such as prestige or pressure. Spanish media materials show that they are more pragmatic than those from other countries. This is reflected in particular on a more frequent use of pragmatic lexicon. The locutions and proverbs of biblical origin are pragmatic tools that provoke reactions on the readers. The choice of these tools is due first to their high illustrative capacity. However, Russian journalistic language, for example, use them much less often due to historical and cultural reasons. The election of only one of the pragmatic instruments is purely artificial, since they are not limited to phraseological units. It also should be noted that pragmatic information is closely linked to semantic information. The introduction of locutions on the information create a journalistic cliché that serve on the one hand to affect the emotional state of the reader with symbolic meaning, and on the other to give the feeling of being in a common communication field, what provides a higher self-esteem to the reader. The use of these methods is due to the necessity to form the predisposition of the reader that includes the general and specific disposition to perceive information. The general disposition is reflected in the fact that, taking a newspaper, the reader expects the satisfaction of his or her psychological needs, effects that alleviate their mental stress to support his or her opinion in a cyclical issue. Satisfaction comes from the feeling that one is knowledgeable. And finally, entertainment. Also important are the usefulness of the information and its aesthetic value. The specific disposition is reflected in the choice of media or traditional communication channels, for example, a particular newspaper. Orientation towards a certain content and form of presentation, a certain author or event. Journalists use locutions in the text to build certain attitudes toward an event or a person, or to change your opinion or behavior. Some examples show that Spanish journalists use extensively potential pragmatism. With this, their use is not limited to the linguistic demagoguery, but includes all variety of methods of pragmatic influence on the reader. Taking into account what is said above about the need to form predisposition to perceive information, does not seem accidental that biblical terms that are easily recognized by the reader are more commonly used on the pages where specific preparation of the reader is manifested in terms that he hopes to see most controversial and subjective materials. The biblical terms can also be used to relieve purely informational materials. This allows us to conclude that the Spanish journalistic language is characterized by a high degree of pragmatism, which is particularly evident in the editorial materials and less obvious in purely informational materials. Now I give you 10 seconds to read these examples. And finally, the conclusion is that the understanding of how media work provides us an opportunity to control their implementation, to direct them to the key life interests and thus to make them more useful, providing pleasure and expanding the sphere of experience. Hence, the role of pragmatic philosophy of media is not in the criticism of reality and in the affirmation of a certain media reality and similar speculative declaration, but in changing or creating the actuality.